Hey guys, welcome back to your next flipped lesson of the year. Hopefully this format works for everybody this time. All right, and you guys can all open up what you need. What we're looking at today, guys, we're going to continue on with our operations of rational expressions. Picking up where we left off yesterday from adding and subtracting, we're going to do the same thing today, but we're going to look at issues in which we have unlike denominators for the first time, and to see exactly how we're going to go about taking care of fractions in that regard. Just a couple quick reminders. Don't forget your weekly review quiz due this Friday, and next week, next Thursday, was going to be our first unit test of the year, combining units 1 and 2 together. Don't worry, you guys will be plenty prepped for that guy. Okay? So with that said, and looking at what we're going to do here, guys, basically here's your kind of quick rundown of your steps. As you know from yesterday, our basic recap, in order to add fractions or subtract fractions together, whether they're algebraic or numerical, we need like denominators. Today, we're going to be dealing with situations, to give you a numerical example, in which we will have different denominators. And the only way that we can add or subtract any type of fraction here is to turn these two guys into a common denominator using an LCD, or the least common denominator. All right, from there, basically, we're going to adjust the fractions as needed so that we can create that common denominator, add or subtract the numerators. We're going to keep the denominators as they are. We're not looking to change them in any way. And then once we've done all that, we're going to combine or simplify our fraction through factoring and reducing, just like we've been doing the last couple of days. All right? So to move on, let's look at our first example together. So again, you saw from the numerical example a very similar concept here. Now we're just throwing in some algebraic pieces. So first, we're going to examine our denominators. In this instance, we have a 3 and a 9. So we have to figure out what is the least common denominator among those two numerical values. Well, in this case, they both share a common denominator value of 9. From there, we're going to look to rewrite the two fractions in the LCD setup. But whatever we do to a fraction in order to change its denominator, we also need to change its numerator in the same way. So to show you my point, we take a look at the first denominator. It was a 3, but we've converted it to a 9. Well, we did so by multiplying by 3. And again, the only way you can convert denominators is through multiplication. Well, whatever we did to the denominator, we do to the numerator. So now our numerator has become 6x for the first fraction. As far as the second fraction is concerned, we had the 9, we kept the 9, therefore we're going to keep the numerator as it was. And from there, this should look awful familiar to yesterday. We're going to add the numerators together, we're going to keep the denominator as it is, and if there's any reducing that's possible, we'll do so. If not, we keep this as our final fraction answer. Simple and straightforward when you have numerical denominators, but when we start to have other types of denominators, especially algebraic ones, the process gets a little different, and that's what we're going to talk about in this next example. All right? So to jump over to example 4 to really emphasize the point, and again, sorry for skipping around, but really just kind of give you guys the basics of this. Here we have two fractions that we're looking to subtract, but once again, you can see very, very different denominators. Well, in order to create an LCD here, we need to factor any denominator that is factorable. And in this case, the second denominator is factorable using the difference of two perfect squares. So we're going to look at the denominator in its factored form. And now here's where things are a little different. In order to create the LCD here, we basically take one of each different type of factor that we see, and that all combines to become the denominator. For instance, we see an x minus 3 in the first fraction. So that will be part of our LCD. In the second fraction, we see an x plus 3. We also see that other factor of x minus 3, but since we already have it, we don't have to repeat it. And now, just like we saw numerically, the process repeats. We're going to rewrite our two fractions in their LCD form. And we're going to look to see how we changed any of the denominators, and we're going to change the numerators accordingly as well. So if you guys take a look at the first fraction, we see that we had an x minus 3, but now we've multiplied in that extra factor of x plus 3. Well, what we do to the denominator, we do to the numerator as well. In the second fraction, we already had the x plus 3 and x minus 3 factors, so we're not changing anything. Thus, we're going to leave the numerator as it is. And now, we're just going to work with the numerator only and combine it so that we can simplify this fraction. All right? So our numerator, we're going to do a little distribution in the first fraction, giving us x squared plus 3x. Our secondary fraction has a negative 18, nothing we can do with that. And all of that is going to be over our common denominator. That is not changing, just like we saw numerically. From here, guys, the only new thing when we have algebraic fractions like this is to point out that we look to factor and reduce where possible. So our numerator can actually factor down into x plus 3, and x plus 6 and x minus 3. Our denominator stays the same. That's still unchanging, that LCD. And just like we saw when simplifying algebraic fractions, common factors in the numerator and denominator reduce away. And after all this work, we are left with x plus 6 over x plus 3. All right, guys? So with that, that's just a quick rundown of how we're going to work with adding and subtracting algebraic fractions with different denominators. To just give you a quick recap, when working with a numerical denominator, we're going to find the LCD like we did long ago when you guys were working with fractions for the first time. We're going to, however we manipulate any denominator, we'll do so to the numerator, combine the numerators, leave the LCD, and reduce if possible. Algebraically, we're basically going to do the same concept. The difference is, to find the LCD, we must factor. Any type of factoring that can be done, we will do, and all the different factors will get listed out to create the LCD. All right? Hopefully you guys got a quick overview. We'll take care of more of this tomorrow in class together, and hopefully you guys all have a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow in class. Take care.